You've been living in two worlds your entire life, and you didn't even know it. Right now, as you hear these words, there are invisible threads connecting everything in your experience with a precision that defies all probability. But here's the magnificent paradox I discovered after 40 years of studying the human psyche. The more desperately you search for these connections, the more they retreat into shadow. And the moment you surrender your need to find them, they illuminate your entire existence. What I'm about to share with you isn't merely a theory about coincidences. It's about recognizing that you're standing at the intersection of two entirely different orders of reality. And the most important discoveries of your life happen precisely where these orders meet. So settle in, because I'm going to reveal what took me half a lifetime to understand. Let me tell you about the afternoon that changed everything. It was 1909, and I was in my consulting room with one of the most rational, intellectually rigid patients I'd ever encountered. She'd been in analysis for weeks, making no progress whatsoever because she insisted on explaining everything through reason alone. That afternoon, she was recounting a dream about a golden scarab, an ancient Egyptian symbol of rebirth that meant nothing to her conscious mind. As she spoke those words, I heard a gentle tapping at my window. This was unusual because my consulting room faced a garden, and insects rarely approached that particular window. I opened it, and in flew a scarab-eyed beetle, the closest thing to a golden scarab that exists in our Swiss climate. I caught it in my hand and presented it to her, saying, "Here is your scarab." Something shattered in that moment. Not the window, but her entire worldview. Within weeks, her analysis began moving forward. That tiny golden-green beetle had accomplished what months of interpretation could not, because it came from a dimension where meaning and matter intersect in ways that causality cannot explain. Now, you might be thinking, well, Jung, that's just an interesting coincidence. But that's precisely the trap I spent decades helping people escape. You see, the word coincidence is what we use when we want to dismiss something our current scientific framework cannot accommodate. It's a thought-stopping label that protects us from confronting a reality far stranger and more meaningful than we've been taught to imagine. I call these events synchronicities, and they represent something revolutionary, the existence of a causal connecting principle, not caused by anything, not random, but connected through meaning itself. This isn't mysticism, my friends, it's empirical observation of phenomena that repeat themselves with such regularity that dismissing them requires more faith than accepting them. But what exactly is happening during these moments? Are we creating these synchronicities with our minds? Is the universe somehow responding to our psychological states, or is something far more profound occurring? Here's where my research led me to a conclusion that still unsettles me. The separation between psyche and matter, between mind and world, is far less absolute than we've believed. Think of it this way. When you experience a powerful emotion or archetypal activation in your unconscious, it doesn't stay neatly contained inside your skull. It ripples outward into the physical world, arranging circumstances and events in patterns that mirror your inner state. It's as if psyche and matter are two aspects of the same underlying reality, and under certain conditions, they can influence each other directly. I discovered this not through mystical revelation, but through meticulous observation. Patient after patient would report meaningful coincidences during critical moments of psychological transformation. A woman dreams of her brother's death, and he dies at that exact moment, hundreds of miles away. A man finally accepts his father's death, and his father's watch, broken for years, suddenly stops at the precise hour of the funeral. These weren't isolated incidents. They formed patterns, synchronicities clustered around births, deaths, marriages, divorces, moments of psychological breakthrough, and encounters with what I came to call the archetypal dimension of the psyche. The more activated the unconscious, the more the external world seemed to respond. Now, here's where most people get magnificently confused. They assume I'm suggesting some kind of magical thinking where you can manifest parking spaces or attract wealth through positive thoughts. Absolutely not. That's the ego trying to control synchronicity, trying to bend it to personal will. And nothing kills synchronicity faster than the grasping ego. True synchronicity arises from a very different place. It emerges when you're in a state of psychological transition, when the conscious and unconscious minds are in active dialogue, when archetypal energies are constellated. These aren't party tricks. They are the psyche's way of confirming that you're touching something real, something that transcends the personal ego entirely. Let me share something that still gives me pause. During my most intense period of confrontation with the unconscious, what I called my creative illness, synchronicities surrounded me like a storm. I would dream of symbols, and within days, patients would arrive reporting identical symbols. I would struggle with a theoretical problem, and a book would literally fall off a shelf containing the precise solution. But here's what fascinated me most. These synchronicities weren't random confirmations. They formed a coherent narrative, as if the unconscious itself was teaching me through the arrangement of external events. The psyche, it seemed, could read and write in the language of matter itself. This led me to one of my most controversial conclusions. There exists what I call the collective unconscious, a dimension of psyche that transcends individual minds and connects all human consciousness. And within this collective unconscious live archetypal patterns, ancient forms that shape human experience across all cultures and times, synchronicities are the visible manifestations of archetypal activation. When you encounter an archetype, when you brush against these fundamental patterns of human existence, the boundary between inner and outer dissolves. The archetype expresses itself simultaneously through your psychological state and through physical events in the world. Consider the archetype of the Great Mother. When a woman becomes pregnant, synchronicities often multiply dramatically. She encounters other pregnant women everywhere. She finds abandoned baby clothes. Songs about motherhood play wherever she goes. The archetype is activating, and reality itself seems to reorganize around its theme. But the rational mind rebels against this. Surely it protests. You're just noticing what was always there. You're projecting meaning onto random events. And yes, projection certainly happens. The ego is masterful at seeing what it wants to see. But true synchronicity has a different quality, a quality I learned to recognize through decades of careful observation. Authentic synchronicity carries numinosity. It has an emotional charge that cannot be explained by the events themselves. When a genuine synchronicity occurs, you feel it in your body. There's a sense of rightness, of profound significance that bypasses rational analysis entirely. The hairs on your neck stand up. You feel you're witnessing something sacred breaking through into ordinary reality. This numinous quality is the signature of the archetypal. It's how you distinguish between the ego's wishful thinking and the genuine movement of the deeper psyche. The ego's projections feel flat, manufactured, convenient. Archetypal synchronicities feel like encounters with a vast intelligence that operates beyond personal desire. Now let me address what troubles most scientists about synchronicity. It seems to violate everything we know about how the universe operates. We've built our entire civilization on the principle of causality. Every effect must have a cause. Events unfold in linear chains of mechanical necessity, but synchronicity doesn't fit this model at all. When my patient dreamed of her brother's death at the exact moment he died, no causal chain connected these events. No signal traveled through space. No energy was transmitted. Yet the events were undeniably connected through their meaning. This is what I mean by a causal connection. Relationship without causality, pattern without mechanical transmission. Western science recognizes only two types of events, those that are caused and those that are random. But synchronicity belongs to neither category, and this is precisely why it's so important. It reveals a third organizing principle in nature, one based on meaning rather than energy, on pattern rather than force. I worked with the physicist Wolfgang Pauli on this problem for years. He too had experienced powerful synchronicities and recognized that quantum mechanics was revealing something similar, events at the subatomic level that seemed connected beyond any causal explanation. We began to suspect that synchronicity might be the psychological equivalent of quantum entanglement, a bridge between mind and matter that operates according to principles we're only beginning to glimpse. But here's what I want you to understand most deeply. deeply. Synchronicity isn't happening to you from some external source. It's not the universe sending you messages like some cosmic postal service. Something far more intimate is occurring. The separation between inner and outer, between psyche and world, is dissolving in these moments. You're witnessing the fundamental unity that underlies apparent duality. This is why I insisted that synchronicity requires a new way of thinking, what I call the psychoid nature of reality. At the deepest level, psyche and matter aren't two different things. They're two aspects of the same underlying reality, two ways of experiencing the same fundamental existence. And synchronicity is what happens when we catch a glimpse of this unity directly. Think of it like this. Imagine reality as a vast ocean. What we call matter is the wave moving in one direction. What we call psyche is the wave moving in another direction. But they're not separate waves. They're movements of the same water. Synchronicities are the moments when we recognize that we're not observing waves from outside the ocean. We are the ocean recognizing its own movement. This understanding transforms everything about how you live. When you realize that your inner state and outer circumstances are intimately connected, not through cause and effect, but through meaning, you begin to pay attention differently. You stop treating life as a series of random events to be controlled and start recognizing it as a meaningful pattern to be read. But, and this is crucial, you cannot force this. You cannot manufacture synchronicities through effort or will. The ego must step back. You must cultivate active imagination, a state of receptive awareness where you're attentive to both inner movement and outer events without trying to control either. I spent years teaching patients this delicate balance. Too much focus on the external, and you miss the inner meaning. Too much focus on the internal, and you become untethered from reality. But when you can hold both simultaneously, when you can watch the dance between psyche and world without grasping, synchronicities reveal themselves naturally. This is why synchronicities cluster during times of psychological crisis or transformation. During these periods, the ego's control loosens, the unconscious becomes more active. You're forced into a state of openness, of not knowing, where the deeper patterns can emerge. Suffering, strange as it sounds, often opens the door to synchronicity because it breaks down the ego's defensive structures. Let me share a profound realization. The more I studied synchronicity, the more I understood that it points toward a fundamental principle of existence. The universe is not indifferent to meaning. Meaning is not something humans project onto a meaningless cosmos. Meaning is woven into the fabric of reality itself. This is revolutionary because modern science has operated on the assumption that nature is meaningless mechanism and only human consciousness creates meaning. But synchronicity suggests the opposite. Meaning exists objectively, and consciousness is how meaning becomes aware of itself. When you experience a powerful synchronicity, you're not creating the meaning, you're recognizing meaning that was always there, waiting to be perceived. It's like tuning a radio to the right frequency. The music was always broadcasting. You just found the wavelength where it becomes audible. This is why synchronicities feel so deeply right when they occur. You're not imposing interpretation on random events. You're reading a meaning that exists independently of your preferences or beliefs. The meaning is objective, even though it's only visible to subjective awareness. So what does this mean for how you should live? Should you start hunting for synchronicities everywhere? Absolutely not. That's the ego trying to control mystery. Should you dismiss them as coincidence? No, because you'd be denying direct experience in favor of theoretical prejudice. The middle path is this: cultivate awareness without grasping. Pay attention to your inner life, your dreams, your psychological movements, but also remain attentive to the world around you. Notice patterns, notice timing, notice when inner and outer seem to speak the same language, but don't force it. Don't try to make it mean something. Let the meaning reveal itself. I developed a practice I called circumambulation, walking around a problem rather than attacking it directly. Apply this to synchronicity. Don't chase it, circle around it, create space for it. Live with one foot in consciousness and one foot in the unconscious. Be present to both psyche and matter simultaneously. And here's the ultimate secret: the more you individuate, the more you become your true self. yourself rather than living through collective personas and borrowed identities, the more synchronicities occur. Why? Because individuation is the process of aligning with your deepest nature. And when you're aligned with your deepest nature, you're automatically aligned with the archetypal patterns that organize reality itself. Synchronicity, in this sense, is confirmation that you're on your path, not the path the ego wants, but the path the self, the totality of your being, is unfolding. When synchronicities multiply, it often means you're touching something real, something that resonates with the archetypal foundation of existence. But let me be absolutely clear about something. Synchronicity doesn't make life easier. It doesn't protect you from suffering or guarantee success. What it does is reveal that your life has meaning, that you're part of a larger pattern, that even your struggles and failures are woven into a tapestry of significance that transcends personal understanding. I've seen people transformed by single synchronicities, a book appearing at the right moment, a conversation with a stranger, a dream that predicted an event. These experiences don't answer all questions. They do something more important. They shatter the assumption that we're isolated accidents in an indifferent universe. They reveal that we are participants in a meaning-saturated reality that's far more mysterious than materialist science has admitted. So here we are, having traveled from a beetle at my window to the deepest questions of existence. You came seeking to understand synchronicity, but what I've shared with you is far more unsettling. The possibility that mind and matter, inner and outer, are not as separate as you've been taught. The possibility that meaning is not subjective projection but objective reality. The possibility that you are not a stranger in a strange universe but an expression of the very intelligence that organizes all existence. Take this understanding forward. Stop demanding that synchronicities prove themselves according to materialist criteria. Stop dismissing your direct experience because it doesn't fit current scientific models, but also stop trying to control or manufacture these experiences. Simply live with awareness, with one eye turned inward and one eye turned outward, and watch as the boundary between them reveals itself to be far more permeable than you ever imagined. The universe doesn't speak in propositions and proofs. It speaks in symbols, in patterns, in the eloquent coincidence of inner and outer. Learn this language, not through effort but through attention, and discover that you've been part of a meaningful conversation your entire life. You just didn't realize you were listening.